The risk of liberty. We have spoken of evil spells, possession, vexation, obsession, and infestation. Now the question arises, why does God permit evil? First, it is necessary to make clear that God, being infinite love, does not wish evil. He simply permits it because he's created men and angels as free creatures. Simply put, men are free to choose whether they wish to live for God or against him, and therefore to opt for heaven or for hell. We recognize that God has made everything to make man happy, and according to his plan, God asks man to obey the laws he has established, but God has also given the man the ability to refuse his truth. This is the situation in which we are all placed. The first who had to choose, as we had already said, were the angels, who in the case of demons, chose to tempt men in order to attract men themselves. The second, the mentioned of time, is man, so it falls on each of us individually to make a choice. John's Gospel says of Christ, all things were made through him, without him nothing was made that was made. John chapter 1, verse 3. Could God have given to creation a greater goal himself than the possibility of enjoying the vision whom they cause for eternal joy? We, in fact, live for him, and there could be no more marvelous goal. Therefore, the rebellion of the angels, the selective disobedience of men, tells us that evil is a concrete possibility, and God has permitted it in order to make us free. And here we are before a great mystery, that creatures freely choose evil rather than good. This is a great risk that God has taken with his creatures, angels and men. He has taken for the simple reason because without free will, that is, without the possibility of choosing between good and bad, we would be robots and not totally free creatures. Liberty, infinite in God, is a sign of our greatness and our sonship in Jesus Christ. Without it, we could all call ourselves but only slaves. God has given us everything. We must recognize only him, adore only him, and guide by only him, because inevitably, if we do not give to God, we necessarily give to idols. He who is not with me is against me, Jesus says, Matthew chapter 12, verse 30. Half measures do not exist. Either we are of Christ or we are of Satan. At times we like to go halfway, serving Christ part way. Well, that is not possible. The devious method that the devil used out of Eve works also with us. It leads us to think that evil and sin do not exist, and that to sin, distancing ourselves from God, trying these things for the pleasure of having experiences again, is a gain. So in the end, what evil is there? Again, half measures do not exist for the Christian. Of course, mind you, this is by Father Gabriel Amrath, explains the demonic. Again, half measures do not exist for the Christian. Either we are of Christ, love and peace, or we are of Satan, hatred and everything else as open rebellion against God. We cannot serve God partially. If we actually try to do that, again, Jesus himself has stated he does not like lukewarm followers, because they will be cast away into the fire and brimstone where the beast and false prophet are. So all these fallen Christians who try to serve God, but also are apathetic to evil, complacent to evil, such as here in America that we're seeing concerning Trump's mass deportation program, which was correctly ruled as ethnic cleansing by the United Nations. And this is a reality. All these people who are consumed, dominated by hatred, who try to serve God, they are cast away. They are going to hell when they die. Because of what they do to others, they do so unto God himself. And again, mind you, as it is written in Matthew chapter 25, and I'll be getting to this shortly. What you do to others, you do so unto God himself. And again, God permits evil, but he also places a limit on evil actions. And of course, this is found in the book of Genesis, so let me actually go right to that. It is true that God permits evil. There's also another truth that comes. Without our knowing, God also puts a limit on evil, limiting the action of Satan against man. We have the example of the book of Job. Satan obtains permission to vex Job, but God forbids him to touch Job. Behold, all that he has is in your power, but only upon himself do not put forth your hand. Job chapter 1, verse 2. God always has the last word. And this is the reality. God permits evil, but he also places a limitation on evil. But the reality is we as Christians, we as Catholics, have to stand against hatred and wrong to safeguard the victims of these demons, of this demonic activity that we are witnessing outright daily here in the United States and in the world. These people, so consumed, dominated by hatred, those who are murdering people in their hearts, are attempting to dominate, to control, to kill all that their human Messiah, Trump, deems an enemy. So more of his supporters are voicing their wish to annihilate his enemies. And we, as Christians, have to stand against these demoniacs, these people who sold their souls to Satan for a single human being, who are no longer in control of their own thoughts because they are dominated by demons for that sale of that soul. This is why diabolical possession, again, is the correct possession type, because these people have lost the ability to think for themselves. And we have to protect their victims from them. So a secular observation of the diabolical possession that these idolaters are under is mass psychosis. These people lack empathy for their victims and for people that Trump deems an enemy. And they'll target, as they did with the Haitians in November of 2 years ago, and now, well, over a year ago at this point, and now, of course, Somalis, immigrants here in America. We have to protect their victims, these demoniacs, their victims, from them.
When a government murders innocent people and calls them terrorists, there's a word for that. When they break the law and then call everybody else criminals, there's a word for that. When strength, force, and power become the only moral language, there's a word for that. And it's not new, it's not creative, it's not even interesting. It's evil. And here's what people get wrong about evil. Evil isn't creative. It doesn't invent anything. It just waits like a weapon until weak people pick it up because it feels like strength to them. But goodness feels small to small people, but goodness is infinite. Out of nothing, goodness creates love and justice and mercy and grace. It adapts, it responds, it outlasts. In the long story of humankind, goodness has never been defeated. My friends, hold tight to your hearts, guard your souls, love your people, and remember that goodness never ends. A light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. May the soul of Renee Nicole Good and the souls of all the departed rest in eternal peace.